Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to my Game of the Year 2019 video. I've been thinking and deliberating for a very long time what games I'm gonna have for my top 10. It really wasn't like last year, where last year I had a really tough time only coming up with 10. Here it was the opposite. I was thinking like, what are the games that I play? Oh yeah, I guess I can put that in there. It was a bit tougher here to actually find 10 as opposed to, you know, not have more than like 20. But yeah, there were a lot of games that were really good this year, as always. And of course, I have the honorable mentions, where, you know, there's a lot of games that, I did play in this entire year that didn't make the list, but I still thought were really good, and, I know enough about them, or I've played enough about them, to the point where I feel okay recommending them to you guys, so I'm just gonna roll them all out like a lightning round. Before I start, just, brief apologies for the lack of, lighting, and, the lack of, like, frame rate. I'm using my crappy little webcam for this because the lights that I usually use, my soft boxes that make my videos look really good, they are shot, you know, like the little light bulbs, they just fizzled out, they don't work anymore, so I have to go and order new ones. In fact, I have one of them right here, so I gotta buy exactly this one, like 8 of these, over the internet, and I gotta wait for them to arrive. So for now, you know, I'm just gonna have to deal with this. I did want to make at least a couple more videos before the year ended, and so I wanted it to be the Game of the Year video and the Game of the Decade video. And so yeah, the lights won't show up until then, and I don't want to wait, so you're gonna have to deal with this right now, even though I hate, like, the slow movement and the bad frame rate and all that stuff, how grainy it is in the background. We're just gonna have to deal with, like, the natural lighting from outside. So, let's begin. We have the honorable mentions, as I said, so, you know, didn't make the list. That doesn't mean that they're bad. They're just really good games that I simply, you know, did not like or play enough as much as, you know, the other games that are in the top 10. And there are a lot of games, so I'm not gonna really dwell a lot of time talking about them. I'm just gonna roll out all the names just so that I can acknowledge that they exist, and that I liked them, and that I played them, and that I highly recommend that you guys get them too. The first game on the list is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, the remake, obviously on Nintendo Switch. Really good, really fun, looks amazing. Fire Emblem Three Houses is a massive, epic game. My brother loves it. The only reason for why, you know, it's not on my Game of the Year list is because I hate strategy games. I am a complete idiot when it comes to them. I love the world and the characters of Fire Emblem, just not the actual video game part, just because the genre is just not really my thing. But otherwise, the game's incredible. We also have Death Stranding. This one, unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to play, but I did see a lot of playthroughs and let's plays and discussions of people talking about it, and, you know, I like that game quite a lot. The next one is Dragon Quest Builders 2, and then Super Mario Maker 2. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, you know, the one that got Game of the Year for the Game Awards. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Judgment, Astral Chain, Catherine Full Body, Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. I know, it's a mouthful, but it's a really good 3DS game. Highly recommend it if you still want to play 3DS games in 2019, which there are a lot of really good ones out there. There's a big, you know, backlog of games you can get through. You know, don't sleep on the 3DS. I still have it right here, and there is a game on 3DS that is on my Game of the Year list, on my top 10, so, you know, look out for that one. We also have Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission, Switch and Shoot, Untitled Goose Game, War Groove, Star Ocean First Departure R, River City Girls, Etrian Odyssey Nexus, another really awesome 3DS game, highly recommend that one. Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes on Switch, awesome game. Some people were actually disappointed with that game or underwhelmed. I thought it was awesome, especially like the story and stuff is really cool. Call of Duty Modern Warfare is another one. Oninaki on Switch is another one. Wonder Song, Attack on Titan 2, Final Battle, Shakedown Hawaii, Katana Zero, Kill la Kill the game. If I gave out an award for like the best art style or whatever, that Kill la Kill game takes the cake. It's literally like the anime, but like, you know, it's a video game. It's awesome. Again, that's another one where people kind of didn't like it, and I really liked it a lot, so hey, to each their own. We also have Dragon Quest XI S, which is, in my personal opinion, the definitive way to play Dragon Quest because it has all of these new upgrades and stuff. Luigi's Mansion 3, Indivisible, Mortal Kombat 11, Yoshi's Crafted World, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, Tetris 99, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, another 3DS game, Gato Roboto, Baba Is You, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, My Friend Pedro, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Okay, so those are all other games that I enjoyed a lot throughout the year, because obviously I play a lot of these, and now we are moving on to the big boys, the top 10 games of 2019, and pretty soon, shortly after this video, I will record the video for Games of the Decade, and that one is probably, you know, gonna get a rise out of a lot of people, because a lot of games came out in like 10 years, so, you know, your favorite definitely won't be on there, and I have my own personal favorites, but let's just focus on 2019 for now. So before I start the list, I just want to, you know, just keep it clear that because one game is lower or higher than the other, that doesn't mean that they're worse or anything. There's not really any objectivity when it comes to this list. This is a very subjective, personal list of just my opinion. You know, just because your favorite game isn't on here, that doesn't mean that, you know, it is like officially declared for the whole world that, you know, that game is bad. No, that's just, you know, the games that I play based on what I like and what I'm looking for and what I enjoyed the most this year. So I'm just gonna roll them out, not really think about it too much. And if you agree or disagree, then whatever, hit me up in the comments. And in fact, you can even give me your own top 10 list and you can let me know what games you liked, because as always, you know, games are bigger and bigger every year, so more and more games come out, and less time and less money people have to play them all, so, yeah, definitely a lot of these are gonna fly over my head, and so, I really do try my best to, you know, try and cover a wide array of games as possible. I always try to have different kinds of games on my list, so, you know, just understand that. Alright, so moving on, let's begin with number 10. We have Blood and Truth, a PlayStation VR exclusive game, and potentially one of my favorite experiences in virtual reality so far. Right on top of, you know, all those other games like Resident Evil 7 or Res Infinite, all of those awesome VR games that I've already talked about to death before. This one really sells itself on the whole idea of an action movie, right? This is like a kind of a generic sort of spy movie, but you are the movie star. You know, you're the guy that's looking around and shooting a bunch of people. I really like how they do the movement where it's not teleporting. I mean, there's the option for that, or you can just pick a point and you can just automatically start moving. And while you move by, you know, the game just moves by itself, you can kind of just start shooting everywhere as the dudes pop up. It has some nice, you know, little challenges like a shooting gallery, many different kinds of weapons that build up over time, little achievements and secrets. The dialogue and the characters are actually kind of alright. You know, I like where it takes place and the implication that there's going to be a sequel after you beat it and stuff. It just ticks all of the right boxes for a John Wick style action movie that really makes you feel super duper badass, even though you're not necessarily walking with like an analog stick. You're just, you know, picking and choosing where you want to go, almost point and click style, but that leaves your mind just free to just point and shoot, and it feels awesome, even with the Move controllers and with the PlayStation VR. I know some people have trouble with the tracking. I had zero problems. I beat that entire game in one sitting. In fact, there's a live stream archive on my second channel, and I have a edited series on my main channel where I just play through the entire thing in just one stream. There are some frustrating parts, obviously, but that's more due to my setup here with the microphones and stuff, and less about the game itself. But yeah, I loved it. You know, the music is fun. The graphics look amazing for a PS4 VR game. So yeah, definitely. When people want to make a good VR thing, it's possible. And that's just with a shooter, right? There's so many other genres that we can still cover. And so knowing that there might be a sequel along the way, I am very much looking forward to it. Blood and Truth, easily one of my most favorite VR experiences thus far, which really, you know, makes me confident that virtual reality still has a long way to go and it's here to stay. These games are way too good for it to just be a fad. People still think that VR is a fad, even though it's been around for quite a while now. So yeah, I'm all in on the VR train, and Blood and Truth is definitely one of those big selling points for me. Moving on to number 9 in my list, it is a rhythm game on the Nintendo Switch. It is called Cadence of Hyrule, featuring Crypt of the Necrodancer. So it is that Legend of Zelda rhythm game spin-off based on the format of Crypt of the Necrodancer. So I was already a pretty big fan of Crypt of the Necrodancer. I have it on like 5 different consoles. I have it on my phone, I have it on like PS4 and PC and Switch. I have it on pretty much anything that can run a game. I have Crypt of the Necrodancer on it because it's so good, and I've always been very musically inclined. I love music games, rhythm games, and I'm always looking for some good ones. And so this one is definitely the most unique one, especially when it has that Zelda spin on it. And you think it would just be like a texture pack, right? Just regular Crypt of the Necrodancer with like Zelda characters on it. No, this is a full-on, no-holds-barred Legend of Zelda experience. You have dungeons, you have enemies that have different combinations for the music, different songs in different areas, items. You have to go and, travel this entire world map full of different areas and enemies. You have a Link and Zelda. You can play as multiple characters, including the Crypt of the Necrodancer girl. There's bosses and stuff. They don't hold back. And the graphics, the pixel art graphics that remind me a lot of like A Link to the Past and Minish Cap, all of those older sprite-based Game Boy Advance games. It's awesome. I absolutely loved it. I played it on stream one time, but honestly, on my personal free time, I could not let go of that game. It is really, really awesome. And if you guys like music games and you like Zelda and you want to see a mishmash of both, then this is the perfect game for you. Get it on Switch. It's delightful. I can't stop smiling every time I think about that game, I listen to the music, or when I play that game myself. Takes a little bit of getting used to, but when it clicks well, and you don't want to let go of that game after that. And now we're moving on with number 8 on my list, which is Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, if you guys have been following my channel or my second channel, you'll know that I've been playing through all of the Kingdom Hearts games from the very beginning all the way, with the final goal of reaching Kingdom Hearts 3. Unfortunately for me, I am still barely at around the ending. I'm about to fight Roxas right now in Kingdom Hearts 2, so I am nowhere near close to Kingdom Hearts 3, but because of all the hype and all the people talking about it, and of course, I actually own a copy of Kingdom Hearts 3, I have it right here. So I've been playing through the entire thing with, the story so far, with, all of the games included on these discs, and then I have Kingdom Hearts 3 as well. Now, obviously, I haven't played through it all the way to the end, but I've seen all the spoilers, I've seen all of the roundtable discussions about the ending, I've seen everything, I haven't played it myself, but I've seen it all, and, before making this video, I did want to pop this game in for a little bit, and I did play it for a couple of hours on my own, and yeah, the game's awesome. It really is. The gameplay is easily the best part of all of these Kingdom Hearts games, because whenever it comes to the actual story with the Kingdom Hearts characters specifically, it's great. I actually really like it a lot. It's not until we get all of the Disney characters where all of the bad stuff kind of starts to creep in with Kingdom Hearts, because for the people that don't really know Kingdom Hearts super well, people think that it's just really stupid and cringy and very difficult to understand and really embarrassing, playing it in front of other people with Donald Duck and stuff. With all of these Disney movie characters running around, and I kind of get it, I'm very split when it comes to Kingdom Hearts, especially with Kingdom Hearts 2, which I've been playing recently. I think all of the Disney crossover stuff is the most boring and most uninteresting thing in the world, but it's not until the halfway point and then the ending where the story actually moves forward is oh my god, this is actually really good. And the bosses and the fights and everything are really fun. And of course, with Kingdom Hearts 3, all of the Disney stuff is actually a lot better because there's less worlds, it's more compact, and the worlds are bigger and they look nicer. You have the Pirates of the Caribbean world, which might as well just be the movie. And you have all of the stuff that happens in the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. It's a game that has been built up for many, many years. It's one of those legendary games like the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Shenmue 3, where people think that, that's never gonna come out, right? That's just, we should just forget about it, right? But, no, eventually that game came, and usually it's met with disappointment, right? Because you're so hyped about it, and so your expectations are way too high. Everybody seems to like it, and I like it a lot too. It seems like the story was properly wrapped up, even though they do hint at other things in the future. It's just really cool. I'm really happy how the game came out. Obviously, graphically, it looks gorgeous. The soundtrack is godlike, and I'm just really happy that everything turned out okay for Kingdom Hearts. Even though it always has its bad, cringy, embarrassing parts, it definitely has its awesome, badass, super duper memorable moments. And so, all of that sticks with me, and it definitely deserves a place on my personal Game of the Year list. Even though I haven't necessarily played through the whole thing on my own, I've seen all of it, and I've enjoyed it, even, you know, through the eyes of other people experiencing it. Okay, number 7 on my Game of the Year list is Resident Evil 2. So Resident Evil 2, I never really played the original one. In fact, I am not the biggest Resident Evil fan. If you ask me anything about Resident Evil, I honestly don't know what to tell you. I started liking it from Resident Evil 4, and then I am one of those people that actually really enjoys Resident Evil 5 and 6. I know that 6 is the one that everyone loves to hate, but I love to love it. I mean, to me, it's like an over-the-top action movie. There's a lot to like with Resident Evil 6. And of course, when they went back to like their more horror-like roots with Resident Evil 7 as opposed to the action-y stuff, I loved that too. It's one of my favorite virtual reality games out there. I pretty much play Resident Evil 7 exclusively in VR, it's that good. And yeah, my interest was kind of rekindled, and then they're doing all these remakes with like the original Resident Evil, and then they did the one for 2, and then we have the one for 3 coming along the way. So yeah, absolutely, just recently I started getting into it, and I heard nothing but great things for Resident Evil 2. Everybody was playing it online, obviously, and so I took a look at it, and I actually liked it a lot. It reminded me a lot of Resident Evil 4, you know, with Leon Kennedy, the over-the-shoulder, you know, kind of thing. They definitely make it scary by making supplies really scarce, not really having a lot of ammo, having to like run away most of the time, doing some puzzle solving. I know I sound like a broken record, but like the graphics in these games have been incredible the entire time. For me, graphics are not necessarily the make or break thing. I know that for a lot of people, if a game looks good, then therefore it is good, which I think is really faulty logic, but I think when it comes to remakes, especially for these kinds of remakes like Resident Evil 2, where like it's not just the same game with better graphics, but rather a complete overhaul of the entire thing, right? You really need to applaud them, because you can really see the advancement here. You can see that Capcom, you know, Capcom, you can criticize them for a lot, but when they do good stuff, it's really good stuff. You know, they've been killing it recently with Resident Evil and with, you know, Devil May Cry and whatnot. So, yeah, I feel like Capcom has a bit of a winning streak right now with all of these super high quality games. So I'm hoping that they keep it up, moving on to Resident Evil 3. As somebody who is relatively new, relatively ignorant when it comes to Resident Evil, somebody who's not super hardcore, somebody that is very casual about it, as somebody who really likes Resident Evil 6 from the perspective of just like a stupid balls out action-y movie kind of thing, I think Resident Evil 2 is awesome, you know? As someone who never played the original, I think I might go back and play it now, now that I've seen this awesome remake, and, you know, we can compare and contrast. Not a big fan of horror games, I really don't like them all that much, but Resident Evil, that one is always an exception, and this second game is, yeah, really, really good. Okay, we're almost at the halfway point. Let's move on to number 6 on my Game of the Year 2019 list, and that is Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I do acknowledge, I realize that there's a lot of things that you can criticize this game on. There was obviously a lot of controversy with the national decks and recycled animations and yada yada yada. You've all heard it a million times. I'm not gonna get into it here. But even despite all of those criticisms, that does not ignore the fact that ever since I launched that game, because I have been streaming it a little bit on a separate streaming channel, ever since I started playing that game, from second one all the way to where I am now in the game, I have never stopped having fun. Every single second of that game has been absolutely delightful. I always want to smile when I think or play that game. The soundtrack, usually the soundtrack in Pokemon is something that I really don't care about, but the music in this one particular game is so awesome, is so hype. Everybody has like their own theme and is really exciting to get into it. The soundtrack definitely is very unique. The Pokemon are very well designed. I love, obviously, 3D, HD, modern console graphics Pokemon. The thing that we have always wanted is finally here, and I think it delivers very, very well on that, with, I guess, the big exception of, you know, there's a lot of moves that don't exist anymore, and there's a lot of Pokemon that don't exist in this game either, but everything that we do have is absolutely marvelous. I love the online component of trading and battling and seeing people in that wild area, being able to catch a bunch of different Pokemon that are like either, you know, way stronger than you're supposed to be catching or training them up, all these special Galarian Pokemon and evolving certain Pokemon into Galarian forms and whatnot. The Gigamaxing or whatever, all of that stuff is really fun. I just don't know what to say. It's a Pokemon game through and through. And so, just on those grounds, I've always had an enormous amount of fun. There really isn't a moment where I'm like, you know, I acknowledge, I hear in my mind people on Twitter complaining, but I just don't care because it has been an absolute blast the entire way. I've yet to be bored or uninterested or mad about anything. Pokemon Sword and Shield, it's awesome. And so I highly recommend that you guys get it. It is an absolute joy to play. All right, we're officially at the halfway point. If the last 5 were the big boys, well, these other 5 are the bigger boys, the big buff boys. Granted, all 10 of these games are absolutely awesome, and you should all go and, you know, play all of these games. But, you know, these last 5 in particular, there's a special place in my heart for all of these. So, number 5 is also a game with the number 5 on it, and that's Devil May Cry 5. A lot of YouTubers, especially Maximilian Dude, and a lot of people that I really respect, super duper hyped up Devil May Cry 5. I know that gaming Brit who loves action games like Devil May Cry 5, and he, you know, praised it to the high heavens. And so I had to try it out. I tried out the demo, and of course I played the full game at some point, and yeah, it's so awesome. Very similar to Resident Evil in that I am not well versed in Devil May Cry. I have, you know, dabbled and played a little bit of every game. I've technically played every single Devil May Cry game, but I've never really gotten super in-depth in the way that the hardcore fans do, where they look at all the combos, they try to get like the max S rank for everything, and then beat the game, and then go back to the beginning with all of their weapons and all of their upgrades and all of the arms that you can equip and stuff. And so I tried doing something like that, and it's really fun. I think the game doesn't really get super duper good until you beat the game once, go back, and really try to be perfect at it with all of your combos and all of your abilities and whatnot, and then using all the different characters. Yeah, it really is incredible, and another home run for Capcom on the graphics department, because it really is impressive how a game can look this good and still be as responsive and nice and really cool to play. The bosses, the music, all of that is amazing. I love the sense of humor in the game with like Dante, you know, dancing and stuff. Everything is as wacky and as cool as it has always been. It really does feel like an evolution, an advancement of Devil May Cry. Usually when a series is kind of gone for a long time and then they come back and there's a lot of hype, usually there's some disappointment there, but I think they very much met those expectations and further surpassed them. I don't think anybody expected Devil May Cry 5 to be that good, but it really is that good. When it comes to action games, you know, like Bayonetta, Wonderful 101, Devil May Cry, it is very clear with this game. It is very clear for me, you know, it's very easy to understand why Devil May Cry is like the default answer when it comes to action games, you know? With this last game, it is very clear to me why this is like the gold standard when it comes to how to make an action game. Whenever there's a different action game, and it's like, oh, it's Devil May Cry, but because this is just like an exemplary title of what an action game should strive to be. And so that's something that you can really, you know, respect it for. And I'm really glad that the game did very well. I'm glad that the game got the Game Award for Best Action Game. I think it very much deserves it. And so, yeah, Devil May Cry is back, as the developers say. And it really seems to me that the game is doing well enough to the point where they'll probably make another one. So I'm very much looking forward to see what happens from here on out. But for now, Devil May Cry 5, if you want a good action game, that's it. And now we have my number 4 game of the year for 2019. And this one kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I was looking forward to this game, but I never expected myself to really like it that much. But I actually ended up really loving it. It's pretty much up there with The World Ends With You when it comes to the meaningfulness of its story and how it affected me. If not for the gameplay, then definitely for what this game represents. I am, of course, talking about the Caligula Effect Overdose. It is a PS4 remastering of an older game on PlayStation Vita called Caligula, just called Caligula. But then it got brought over on the West as the Caligula effect, and it had some frame rate issues, tech and optimization-wise, it was severely lacking, but it had a lot of potential, it had a lot of stuff going on over there. And so on PS4, they essentially completely revamped the combat, they revamped, the graphics, the audio, they had a bunch of brand new content and an entirely, alternate path that you can take on the story, like a bad guy route, and it really is incredible. I mean, it's essentially a JRPG about, these high school kids that essentially live in this bubble, in this world where everything is perfect and you're always in school and you're always young and beautiful forever. But in reality, a lot of the people living inside of that world are people with problems, people that are too emotionally unstable or immature to take on the real world, and these are like young adults here or even older. And so, I love that the story is essentially about growing up, but usually a lot of coming-of-age stories talk about little kids, right? Like a little child essentially growing up to be like a teenager or a young adult or to be a man or whatever, right? But I very rarely see a coming-of-age story surrounding adults, like an adult learning how to be an adult, right? Because there's so many villains that, are very pathetic in real life, but in this, fantasy world, they're perfect, right? And so they'd rather be there instead of outside, because outside they don't know how to deal with life and all of the difficulties that come with it. And so throughout the entire story is essentially, talking about, no, you gotta deal with it, this is a part of a life, you gotta mature, you gotta grow up, and you gotta, learn how to let go of this high school stuff and the youth or whatever. You're gonna get old, that's just the reality of it, right? I love the characters. I love that it's very Persona style, where you kind of have a social link bond with everybody, and you have very much ample time to get to know everybody. And the combat is very interesting because it's in this big arena, and so you can move around and do little strategies and combine different moves from different characters and different weapons, which, by the way, you can recruit a lot of people, all of the random NPCs that are walking by you. There's 500 different characters, and you can all recruit them into your team, and they all have their own weapons and stuff, and you can use them whenever you're separated from your team or when you need some backup or whatever. It has a lot of very interesting ideas. I love this game mostly for the story. The gameplay can be a little too easy or a little too hard. So, it's kind of tough to find that one sweet spot where it's, challenging enough to where it's fun but not torturous. Yeah, the gameplay is super unique. I love the music in it. I love the art style, very Persona 2, very Shin Megami Tensei, original art style. Yeah, I don't really see a game like this anywhere else. I love how it kind of turns everything on its head. I love how interesting it is. And, yeah, I really don't know how much this game sold, but I think Caligula is gonna be one of those games where, 20 years from now, we're gonna look at it and be like, oh man, it was so underrated, and it's so, it's so groundbreaking and no one noticed. Yeah, I think Caligula, especially the PS4 remaster Overdose, is going to be one of those games that, if not now, then somewhere along the future, there's going to be, somebody out there that will champion this game as one of the greats where nobody noticed. There's a diamond, stuck amidst, a whole other pile of other games. And so, yeah, there's so many games now that it's tough to, notice and recognize all of them. But yeah, I recognize it, I acknowledge it, I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite games that I played this year. Yeah, if you want a cool, unique, different JRPG to play Caligula on PS4 or on PC. You're not gonna regret it. It's, yeah. If anything, it'll be a unique experience. Apologies, my phone seems to be vibrating and it's not stopping. Alright, let's move on. We're getting very close to the end here. We have the number 3 game of the year for 2019, in my own personal opinion. Now, this one might be a point of contention. Some people might say that I'm, cheating, I'm getting off on, a little loophole on a technicality, but I seriously enjoyed this game so much. I absolutely loved this game so much. I played so much of it that even my brother was like, dude, look at the hours. Why do you play this game so much? I just think it really is that good. It's addicting. It's got a hold on me. Even, now, every day before I go to bed, I play a little bit of it. This game is technically an older game, but it did release on the Nintendo Switch for the first time in 2019. And, it technically counts, and I like it specifically because it's on Nintendo Switch. So the platform really does matter, and I'm talking about Star Wars Pinball. Now, of course, I've already told you guys stories of me getting super addicted to Star Wars Pinball. There goes my phone vibrating again. Pinball FX, Pinball FX 2, Pinball FX 3, Zen Pinball on phones. That pinball kind of, platform where like a bunch of other pinball tables go in there and cross over. That's been a thing for a long while. You have all of the Star Wars tables on there. You have, obviously the Family Guy ones and the Back to the Future ones and whatever. But one of the things that I really like about Star Wars Pinball is that same thing, but, spun out into like its own original thing. And so it has challenges, obviously it has a lot of Star Wars songs in there, tournaments, league, where you can go online and like go up on the ranks of pinball with all of these Star Wars themed pinball tables based on the movies, based on different themes, light side versus dark side. There's one obviously for like the Han Solo movie, the Rogue One movie, and there's even an entire campaign where you can fulfill a bunch of objectives, get a score in a certain amount of time, do all the little mini games on the pinball tables. It's really, really great. And I acknowledge that, these games came out back in like PlayStation 3, back on PlayStation Vita, and I loved it on PlayStation Vita, but of course, times move forward and you kind of fall out of it, right? I only played maybe like 2 or 3 pinball tables at the time because I was too cheap to, buy any of the other tables. And of course, there weren't as many pinball tables back then as there were now. And so now we have 2019, there's a bunch of other movies that have come out, so there's a lot more tables, and it came out on Nintendo Switch in 2019. You can flip the Nintendo Switch on its side so that you can play the pinball vertically, which is awesome. Do it with a little touchscreen. You have the Joy-Cons with the HD rumble, which feels really good. The game also runs surprisingly well on Nintendo Switch with a very stable frame rate. I enjoy playing this game on Switch specifically a lot. So that's why I say that people might think that I'm like, cheating or, that it doesn't count or whatever, because the game has been out before and there really aren't any big changes other than there's just more pinball tables, there's more challenges, and there are a lot of more things that are just more specific to Star Wars. I like that there's, upgrades and stuff where you can, have the ball go in slow motion, like force powers or whatever in a pinball game, but that doesn't stop the fact that it is a 2019 release on Nintendo Switch, and specifically because of that, and the fact that I'm able to, to take the game everywhere I go and I can enjoy it, I think out of all of these games, out of all of the 10 games that I have on my list, Star Wars Pinball is the one game that I have spent the biggest amount of time on, more than any other game. I think, I'm gonna go check. Let's see how many hours I have in Star Wars Pinball. Let's find out right now. I've played Star Wars Pinball for 30 hours, which honestly, I thought it would be more. But, that's a lot for a pinball game, and I fully intend to play a lot more because I am not done playing it. Especially when you've had really bad games come out this year, like Peach Ball Senran Kagura, where the pinball is totally out of whack over there. It really makes me appreciate games like Star Wars Pinball a whole lot more. I just wish the Senran Kagura did the same thing as Star Wars does, where they have many, different themed pinball tables with better, optimization, better frame rate, better physics. And so, when you add up all of the other pinball games that are not able to do it as well as they do, Star Wars Pinball comes out on top. It is my addiction. Take away the Switch from me, because otherwise I am not going to stop. Alright, we're almost done. We have 2 more games left. So my number 2 most favorite game of the year for 2019 is, big shock, a 3DS game. Who would have thought? Yes, the 3DS is still pushing out some really good stuff, including Etrian Odyssey and stuff like that. It is usually towards the end of a console's lifetime where you start to see like those really, really good like Japanese RPGs, like those swan songs of the consoles. That always tends to happen. And so for the 3DS, it's no exception. My number 2 most favorite game of the year is Persona Q2 on 3DS. I played Persona Q1 and I absolutely loved it until I got stuck in like a haunted house or whatever, and I had no idea how to get out, and then the game got way too difficult. The enemies are literally impossible to beat, but I played Persona Q2, and they definitely address a lot of the problems that I had with the first one, and this game is honestly way, way better. I really wanted to beat the first one before moving on to the second one, but the story doesn't necessarily carry over. It's based around the Persona 5 characters, and then everybody else kind of just joins in for the ride with all the Persona 3 and Persona 4 characters. The game is dubbed in Japanese, which is a shame. I thought it'd be cool to hear them all in English interacting with each other, but that's fine. All of the voice actors are amazing. The music, as always, the music is awesome. It's really weird seeing like that super awesome stylized Persona 5 style for all the menus and stuff, but having it all compressed into like a 3DS game. It's very much a sight to behold. And of course, seeing all of the chibi-fied characters and whatnot. The 2D animations are incredible. It really sucks that the game didn't really sell as much as it could have, because, I mean, obviously the Nintendo Switch is more popular, and people don't really care a whole lot about the 3DS anymore, but it's an M-rated 2019 new 3DS game. Is a dungeon crawler, and you guys know that I'm an absolute sucker for dungeon crawling games, like Etrian Odyssey, building and making your own little map, doing little landmarks and stuff. The touchscreen is actually really bad when it comes to the map making on this game. I don't know why. Whenever I press on something, it's just slightly more to the side of where you're actually touching. Maybe it's just my screen is broken, I don't know, but that doesn't happen with any other game. It's only with this one. But yeah, I love the new characters that come in, Kamoshida Man, you know, like all of these villains and stuff. It's super interesting. And the story, whew, my god, the story in Persona Q2. I mean, Persona Q1 was already kind of really out there, but Q2, it just completely, I don't know. I love it. It's really awesome. The soundtrack is really cool. The gameplay is tightened up a little bit more. Obviously, there's a lot of strategy involved. There's different difficulty levels for you to just either enjoy the story or to totally, like, torture yourself, you know, with super difficult fights. I obviously like to play it a little easier, but I like the whole idea of, you know, a cinema of like going into all these different worlds based on all these different movies that you play. Yeah, it's a Persona-ass Persona game, but it's honestly one of the best. It's really great now that you have the Persona 5 cast, and they have their own deal, and all of the characters really do shine a lot more here, as opposed to Persona Q1, where everybody was kind of like a flanderized version of themselves. Here, they shine a little better. And that's even with the story just being one story, as opposed to Persona Q1, where you had to choose between two different campaigns. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it looks great, it sounds great, it plays great, the story is incredible. I really like seeing all of these characters getting together once more to do this dungeon crawling kind of thing. It really makes me want a Persona Q3 on the Nintendo Switch, although I don't know how they would do that. I think they would have to put out an Etrian Odyssey game first, test it out that way, and then maybe do a Persona Q3 on Switch, because I think then it would actually succeed. Or maybe just port the second one, I don't know. I feel like, you know, this series of dungeon crawlers are way too good for it to just, like, not, you know, continue to be a thing. Maybe after Persona 6 comes out, maybe they can have a crossover with them too. And finally, I have my number one game of the year for 2019. If you guys have been following my channel recently, then you guys already know what game it is, because I firmly put my foot down and I said, this is it. I don't care what else comes out. This is my game of the year for 2019. And still, even after, you know, looking back at, you know, all of these games on my list, I mean, there are some of these games that kind of come a little close, but ultimately, the highest amount of enjoyment, the highest amount of fun, and the highest amount of just happiness that the game brought me, yeah, I think it deserves number one, and it should be appreciated, all of the effort that was put into a game like this, and it is The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. So I did get a code for this by NIS America when, you know, just a little bit before the game came out, and so I took my time to really play as much of it as I could, and I'm still playing a lot of it on stream, still going through the story, and very similar to Pokemon, there isn't a single second where I wasn't having fun or enjoying it. Now, obviously, there are some parts in the story, in the main story, that kind of confuse me or frustrate me, or think that is a little over the top or unnecessary, or just things that kind of bother me, or things that I'm not particularly interested in. But that's a very small price to pay for literally everything else. And that is especially when you compare Cold Steel 1 and 2 to the third one, because 1 and 2 were PlayStation 3 games. They ran at 30 FPS. The voice acting was a little bit more limited, the game didn't look as nice, the gameplay was a little slower, and so now, with Cold Steel 3, you get that PS4 quality. The anime art style, the graphics are astounding. It's still the Legend of Heroes world, but everybody looks a billion times more beautiful. The sound, the music is just as good as ever. I like how the commands and everything for the battles are totally streamlined to like button presses in a very Persona 5 kind of way, where you just press a button and you're already in the command, right? It's not like a menu where you have to choose things. The voice acting, particularly with the English dub, is still as amazing as ever. The story and exploring the world, getting to know everybody, it is still the incredibly well-realized world that we have come to know from Charles in the Sky, Sky 2, Sky 3, Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2, and of course, for all of you people that have played the Crossbell games, then of course you can factor that in as well. Cold Steel 3 very much feels like the culmination of all of those games, kind of taking all of those mechanics, taking all of those graphics, all of that story, and start to like really bring it together in a very special way. If you guys want a really good comparison, there's Cold Steel 3, and then there's Cold Steel 4 in Japan that hasn't come out yet over here. And so, Cold Steel 3 is looking like the Avengers Infinity War before Endgame happens, right? Which would be Cold Steel 4. And in Cold Steel 4 is where, like, everybody kind of gets together and fights one big bad guy and whatnot. And so, yeah, if this is the Infinity War of the Legend of Heroes world, then I am super pumped to see what happens next, because these are a lot of characters that I genuinely really care about. And even though all of the student characters, all of the newer guys take a lot of time to get used to, sometimes they do things that just piss me off, that I just don't like. The characters can be a little annoying sometimes, but you grow to love them just as much as all the other characters. When it comes to Legend of Heroes, it's just waiting when you love them, as opposed to, whether you love them always or never. Most of them are very, very lovable. And, just the combat is very streamlined, everything looks nicer, sounds nicer. I love seeing, the higher resolution, the higher frame rate, being able to play in 60 FPS, and seeing all of the older characters from the previous games, have them come back, and there's almost like time skip type of format. It really is a joy to behold. And you really have to be a fan, of the Legend of Heroes for you to be able to, A, get it, and to B, really appreciate the changes. Especially for me, where, I played Cold Steel 3 immediately after the second game. Like, as soon as I finished watching the credits roll on the second game, I came out of that onto Cold Steel 3, and I saw the difference between night and day. And so I appreciate that a ton. Yeah, honestly, one of the better RPGs that I've played in a long, long, long time. It's, the quality is oozing out of this game. And so if you guys are really planning on getting into the Legend of Heroes, playing any of these games, then yeah, start with Cold Steel 1 at the very least, and then Cold Steel 2, and then Cold Steel 3, and you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean when I say that this game is my number one game of the year of 2019. It's awesome. If you're a fan of the series, you cannot miss out on this one. It's incredible. Even despite all of my complaints, which are almost exclusively about the story, I usually like the slice of life stuff a little bit more, where you're not focused on the main story, but the whole game is just delightful. Even despite the flaws, I adore everything about it. Whenever I look at that world, I think, I want to live there, I want to do some magic spell that teleports me inside the world of the game so that I can just live there for the rest of my life, because that's how much I love it. I really do. And now that there's the implication of the older Crossbell games coming over to PS4 at some point, then yeah, I'm dying to play those so that I can get a better experience with Cold Steel 3, because there's a lot of story stuff that, is kind of missing here that you gotta play the previous games for. So, yeah, it all comes together. This is the Avengers Infinity War of the Legend of Heroes, and I can't wait for the fourth Endgame game to come out. And there you have it. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to me just ramble on and on and on and on in a very non-specific way about my 10 most favorite games of 2019. 2019 has been crazy for me in terms of my YouTube activity and just my life in general. I got a full-time job, finally. A lot of things are kind of coming together for me in a good way, but at the same time, I have been neglecting the YouTube channel a lot because full-time job, I have other responsibilities, and I'm getting paid, obviously, which means that there's no actual urgency for me to like keep making videos every day to see, you know, if I'm gonna make it one day. Now I can just take my time and just make whatever videos I want and stream whatever I want without having to worry if this is going to like, you know, make my channel blow up or not, right? I'm not there clout chasing anymore. I can just do it for the pleasure of it. And so that's exactly what I intend to do. So, you know, for this year, for 2020, maybe I'll do a separate video of my YouTube related or career related New Year's resolutions, because I definitely have a lot, and a lot of it is about consistency and just, you know, scheduling appropriately, so that, you know, I can kind of put out stuff a bit more consistently, even if it's smaller scale stuff, maybe not the bigger scale stuff that I was planning, because that takes more time, and obviously I have other responsibilities that kind of don't let me do that anymore. So yeah, maybe I'll talk about it in a separate video, but for now, I would just like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of the people that have stayed in the channel, that have continued to watch the videos, that have continued to show support, you know, for whether it's the Samurai Kagura videos, whether it's the One Piece content that I've been making, which, by the way, I will be reviewing more manga chapters. I'll catch up from where I left off, and, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot that I can do right now. I just have to find the time to do it. Plus music, plus, you know, that game that I have ideas for, and live streaming, and, yeah. There's just a lot. I just have to decide what I want to focus on first. I can't spread myself thin across everything. Plus my job, so, yeah. And we got some pretty crazy things going on at my job as well that are going to be really exciting, so things are really looking up. I just gotta find the time and the energy to do it all. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching my top 10 for 2019. Obviously, feel free to agree and disagree, like, dislike, whatever you want, but give me your reasons, or, you know, lay down your own list down there in the comments. I do read the comments. I'm interested in what you guys have to say in terms of that, what games you personally really liked. Of course, there are more and more games coming out every year, so it's difficult to kind of cover them all. So, these are just the ones that I played, that I really enjoyed, that I recommend. So, yeah, thank you very much again for watching. I think I've said that maybe like 7 different times, but I'll say it again. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. And of course, like the video, and subscribe, hit that bell icon, whatever. You guys know what to do if you guys want to subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time with hopefully the top 10 games of the decade. So that one's going to be a big deal. I've thought about it for a very, very long time. And so, yeah, we'll see how that goes. There won't be any honorable mentions on that one. That one is just going to be the list. So, let's see what people think about it. And again, very subjective, so let's see how that goes. Alright, thanks everybody. See ya. Bye-bye. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Hopefully you spend time with your family and have a great time. And, yeah, hope all is good. Take care. Love you all. Bye.